We're looking for Mike from around the world to call at any minute now. And we're going to bring him on here. I want to welcome all of you. And here he is. Wow, right on time. This guy's on top of it. Mike from around the world.
Pastor Paul, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Let me crank you up all the way. Let's make sure we got enough volume here.
All right.
Good, good, good. How you doing?
Good.
Well,
I'm doing well.
It's good talking to you, Mike. There's been a lot going on since the last time we had our conversation.
Yeah, it really has.
So, Mike, I was just going on there about the fact that last night Mike Brown from Caltech Institute was on Coast to Coast last night, and he told everybody. He said, "Look, every night, the observatory there in Hawaii, we're searching for the elusive planet number 9." He used the term planet number 9, but it's this huge binary system on the out edges of our solar system, and he shared that. Now I see the article been printed right here from the UK from his interview last night. So, is there anything you can help us with this?
Well, they will. Did they mention in there how difficult a task that is with what's available?
They did. They said it's extremely. They said it's the hardest thing that they're doing because even though this is a very large planet mass, it's 600 times as far away as the sun. And they said, so it's incredibly hard object to pinpoint. As he said to Coast AM radio, the astronomer explained that the tricky process behind locating Planet 9, Dr. Brown said the problem is it's so far away that even though it's large, it's among the faintest things that we can see on our telescopes.
Yeah. And given the speed of this thing, right? Because if it were slow in proximity to us and it were quite a slow object out there, we would feel the effects of it big time. But this thing is fast. It's very fast, which means by the time they detect it, it could, in fact, something like that could be upon us in very short notice. Very short notice. And in fact, by the time it's observed, it could be too late, in all honesty.
Because even though it's this great distance from us, it's coming in a very oblong orbit. Is that correct?
Yeah. It's and that's why many things one of our binary twins, regardless of what they call it, this thing, there's something out there with lots of mass, sufficient mass and speed and inertia and gravitational pull to disrupt our entire solar system.
So, Mike, we've seen the volcanoes have been going off, just like you said we should watch for. We've been seeing those in Mexico, Indonesia, different locations. There's been earthquakes, of course, that's been very strong as well. We're just continuing to see, and these straight line winds. I mean, this cyclone bomb, they called it, that went through the United States and dropped ungodly amounts of rain and ice melting in Nebraska. But we've been watching around the world. The monsoon rains have been already. There was thunderstorms just recently with massive hail in China and Nepal, killing people. In Nepal, it killed 30 people and injured over 400. Simply nothing but thunderstorms, pre-monsoon thunderstorms, storms they haven't ever seen before. We've seen 100-mile-an-hour straight-line winds blow a train off a bridge in New Mexico, and 97-mile-an-hour blizzard winds in Colorado Springs. So these are just a few of the things that's been happening. What is your take on that? Is this because of the waves of energy, or again, is it because the jet streams are being pushed down by the particles or the dust or whatever is happening?
The influx of particles coming from outside the heliosphere into the solar system is just a steady cumulative process in the atmosphere of Earth. So the atmosphere is going to continue gain a type of density, weight, which will abruptly change the temperatures. Now, at a given point, it becomes an exponential change, which is not so good news. Meaning, just like a match, at a given time, a match can get so hot before it ignites. Well, the same thing is true with our atmosphere. It'll reach a point where it cannot retain all those heavy elements that are above it, which you go through a severe compression event. That event, by the way, has been looked at a few times in the past, and it was quite devastating. Compression event. So it won't be the first time we've had a compression event. It's just that it's the first time people have heard of this because it's not in common day sciences. But this heavy buildup of particles is going to cause a lot of weight in the upper atmosphere. Now that weight's going to translate into force or movement. With that force brings energy. That energy and that compression event itself will increase a type of mass, which will just cause. It's going to wreak havoc in many different places. One of the major concerns is that some of the places that normally have stable weather patterns, say like, for example, New York. New York is in I put that the center line as far as experiencing summer, winter, fall, these seasons. So just imagine New York experiencing nothing but winter, right? And just imagine the West Coast.
Why?
The Earth being tilted just a bit more in a very strange way to where the West Coast is more north than it is right now. The West Coast, so California could actually turn into a type of Arctic, partially an Arctic region. So you have an exchange of these areas of the Earth where temperate forest is, Arctic and arid regions are. They're gonna begin to reverse. There is a degree of change in the Earth. It's been happening, at least as far as I can observe, more notable now in the last 6 years than any other time. But there's a change in this tilt. And so we have a process ongoing that will likely cause an internal double wobble. And that wobble will cause California to sit in a northern type region. So it's going to become colder in California.
So wait a minute, Mike. So you're saying now you're talking pole shift here. I mean, you're saying there's a double wobble coming, and we're having a shift going on. Is this shift going on right now?
Yeah, it's very subtle. It's extremely subtle. And the only way to tell that is with well, let's just say, for lack of a better term, some Stone Age equipment. Some not digital equipment, not some fancy observation platform, but with the sun's shadow, given a steady on a building, on a pre-marked position. You analyze that over the course of a couple of years, you're going to notice a severe change. With all these seasonal changes, for the 5th year in a row, the shadow has been in a different position, which means by that change in the shadow to our proximity of the sun, you can tell the tilt of the Earth is actually beginning to change.
Does that mess up the sundial? I mean, if you had a sundial out there, does that mess it up?
Yes. It will. It's subtle changes in a sundial are huge. They're really huge.
Well, now,
and so,
Mike, there's a sundial in Jerusalem. Okay. It's right. It's in this garden area, and Heidi and I and Stephen Ben Noon and his wife Yana. We actually 3 years ago was actually walking through this garden in Jerusalem. It's along a ley line, and as you're walking, seriously, and it goes right toward the Hotel of the Vatican. But that's another story. But when you're walking along the ley line in the middle of this garden in the center of Jerusalem, there's a big, huge sundial. But when we looked at the sundial, it was a half hour off. And I asked Stephen, I said, Stephen, am I right? But the sundial's a half hour off. He looked at it, and he's been over a 10-year period. But something's not right here.
Right, something is not right. That's not the only one that's a bit off. And in several portions of the Earth, Jerusalem being near the center of the, let's say, the chaos here, or the rotation, many of our cardinal points are going to be a bit different here in the near future. But we're looking at the problem is a buildup, an abrupt change, because it reaches a point to where the changes are too fast. In other words, our infrastructure cannot support a change that fast in a tilt. Now, if it tilts too fast, if anybody out there has ever studied a spinning sphere, and they know about a double wobble, it is something that's unavoidable. A double wobble is very damaging. So you have a natural tilt of the Earth, but then you'll have an internal double wobble, meaning that for correction, for the sake of inertia, for correction, you're going to have a wobble within a wobble. That's very damaging. That means it does not have to be abrupt to tear down all these buildings on the surface. I suspect that because of gravitational pull and things of that nature, wherever the ring exists at that point, right, when you spin something, it's like spinning a top, right? If you attach a string to a spinning top, that string's going to stick straight out. So call that the ring. Call that the line of maximum inertia or maximum force. Wherever that ring exists, whatever cities lie on that ring are going to be torn to shreds. And then you have the other cities, which will be a little less damaged. And of course, in the center, it's going to be quite stable. Well, right now, Jerusalem just so happens to be in that center. It is very odd in that region, in that proximity between Jerusalem and Egypt, is that center that won't entail that much damage until the correctional wobble. Now, all of that is extracted from modeling done. It's just, you know, the modeling indicates the exact same thing over and over again. And based on these conditions we're going through, the modeling is pretty accurate. And so you're looking at large scale movements in our continents. And I was well, a long time ago with the Navy, when they were talking about the water rising, one of the issues with the water rising, one of the hidden issues had to deal with an external gravitational force, which would cause this double wobble that they already know about. It's already been recorded, but we're about to go through that again.
You know,
that's not good.
No, it's not good at all. And that's this conference we got coming up, folks, on May the 11th. This conference that's coming up on May the 11th, the heavens are shaking. You know, John Moore's coming from St. Louis, and of course he was in the Navy intelligence, and he talks about that map, that Navy map that shows when the pole shift happens, which is going to happen in, you know, we're having a slight tipping, but I mean, he's talking about somewhere around a 20% pole shift, just boom, 20 degrees. That's going to create massive floodings, and it's just really going to mess stuff up everywhere. So, Mike, is the binary system, is the waves of energy. I mean, we talked about how we got to get through the winter, and if we can get through these next few weeks, well, we've been trying to get through the next few weeks, but look at these storms, look at these cyclone bombs. This was kind of what you were concerned about. What do we got to look forward to now going in through April, May, and let's say in the end of June?
Well, in 2015 in August, I'll say it again, we had volatile substances that exploded. Otherwise, they were kept separate. All those explosions that were taking place on August 17th, you remember that?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Well, that trouble could come back again.
We're having it, Mike.
Why?
We've had, in the last 10 days, we've had two massive plant explosions in China. We've had 3 now plant explosions in the Houston, Texas area. And yeah, I mean, it's happening. I started thinking, is this because of what causes it? You're saying something in the atmosphere mixes with the chemicals, causes an explosion?
Well, you have high-speed particles that will penetrate the atmosphere. They won't. They begin to overwhelm the magnetosphere, and so they're redirected. They shoot straight through, and they come to the surface of the Earth. When that happens, materials it knocks the nucleus out of particles, and thus changes that particle into something else, and can cause a relative harmless product to become very explosive. Because it changes, there is a chemical change there. There's an absolute structural change, a molecular change. And our solar system is being just inundated with these pulses of high-speed particles coming in, and they're not stopping. They build, and then they subside, and they build, subside, build, subside. Our sun is. I think that it is known what the sun will do, and of course I'm not going to state that tonight. But let's just say that this summer. This time coming up with the sun, this summer, by the way, is going to be very different, extremely different.
Okay, now wait a minute. You said something about the sun, something's going to happen. Right now, folks, there's 2,000 people with us here live right now on YouTube. Would everybody hit the thumbs up real quick? Just hit the like button, because that will drive the algorithms up, and that will cause YouTube to then send this information out everywhere, reaching out to more people, that there's a live broadcast going on with a large crowd of people gathering, and it will just send it out flying. If everybody would hit the like button right now, you can help redirect these algorithms to a higher level. So, Mike, what's going to happen to the sun? I mean, what's going to happen to the sun?
Any inbound radiation particles are going to affect the sun. Any concentration of these inbound particles, or if it's a concentration of them, is going to severely affect the sun. I suspect that people will notice a severe change in the sun's behavior. Out of season. I'm going to say this, the sun is about to be out of season. Now, for a long time, the sun has gone through pretty steady cycles. I suspect that's going to be interrupted. I just highly suspect that. And once that cycle is disrupted, so will the Earth in turn begin to undergo some changes itself.
Are you saying the cycle from solar minimum to solar maximum are going to be interrupted?
I do not think they'll no longer be constant. I think they're going to abruptly change. I really do. And that is, that's an extraction, of course, from just accumulated data, but I believe that's going to be severely interrupted. That'll be one of the first observable changes. What a lot of people won't be able to say, that's happenstance, or that's nothing, or this, that, and the other. Because one of the whole points, if people are aware of these changes, they won't feel like somehow God has abandoned them, like these things are just happening out of the blue, but rather they'll understand that these things have been, there was a warning that did go out. But most importantly, that God's people won't fall apart when these things begin to happen. At least they will have an awareness that these things are taking place, and they can serve as good guidance for other folks who don't.
Well, the Bible does say that, Mike, that my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. So we're not destroyed. We're aware in these last days that there's going to be all these great signs in the heavens and in the earth, and blood and fire and pillars of smoke, and the sun will be turned to darkness and the moon into blood before the great and terrible day of the Lord shall come. So let me ask you, so the sun's going to go through what sounds like some accelerated solar cycles from minimum to maximum to minimum to maximum, hopefully not extreme amounts. That's going to affect the earth in a big way, isn't it?
Yeah, the solar cycles, if they're disturbed, that's yet another constant or unchanging factor that will be disrupted, adding further credence to some of the changes that are taking place. Hopefully people can understand this, because their biology is directly tied to the sun. I hope they know this. Their attitude, the way their brain works, everything is directly tied to the sun in some type of way. And all biological life forms on this planet will likely be affected by the sun, right? So a Christian has an advantage, because most of the choices, if we walk by the Spirit, then we're not being led by these desires of flesh and that, so on. But the flesh, desires, aggression will rise in people. Pastor Paul, is going to be a direct consequence of these changes out there, is a type of aggression inside of a person will begin to grow. Just outrageous outbursts of individuals. People will turn murderous for no reason whatsoever, and it will continue to rise. It will continue to rise. But those who operate by the Spirit, well, they don't follow their flesh around. Their flesh follows them around. Their flesh is subjected to them, and they're not subjected to the flesh. So Christians have an advantage who truly believe. So those who are not led by the Spirit, they're going to be prone to every single attitude and movement of the flesh, and it will become the violent part of this is one component that is it's normally missed, but people are going to go way out of control.
Well, if you think about it, Mike, I mean, that's what Jesus said. There'll be wars and rumors of wars. See that you be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. Nations would rise against nations, kingdom against kingdoms. Jesus even said, as it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be in the coming of the Son of Man. Well, we know in the days of Noah, the Bible says the earth was filled with violence. Men's hearts were on evil continually. Every imagination of their heart on evil continually. So this aggressiveness, this murderous spirit, this zombie apocalypse type mentality, this hunt or be hunted, this warfare, this survival mode, you're saying a lot of that is because men are walking in a carnal mind, and that carnal mind is going to be affected by these waves of energy?
Absolutely. It's going to be affected by that, the sun, some of the changes in the earth. All of biology will begin to change. All of it will. All of it will. Even the animals will likely become highly aggressive.
We're seeing this, Mike, because it seems like more and more and more we got attacks. People are being attacked by alligators crawling out of the Everglades, and we've got tigers, and we got mountain lions jumping over fences and attacking people. Lions running in packs, hunting down people in Africa. Hyenas running in packs, hunting down people. Wolves, all kinds of different strange events by animals. So, to your point, there's some stuff going on that's just beyond our ability to comprehend.
It really is, and it's escalating. Hopefully, we are aware, because in Revelation, one of the portion of the earth, portion of men are killed by the animals. One of the components that kills men is animals too. And right now, the aggression factor, I believe when it starts coming forward, it'll become so normal. But this world, men will revert back to a animalistic type nature. It's not going to be good. Right now, they can induce aggression on any crowd they so desire through small magnets directly to your head. You can also instantly put a person in confusion if you so desired, right? And a lot of people, they look at this and how can somebody do that? Well, the same way anesthesia works, right? They can also put a person out when they want to through a fluid, right? But that fluid just chemically changes receptors in the brain. They can do this magnetically. They can disrupt signals of the brain.
Frequencies. Just like in a submarine, if you're in a nuclear submarine or you're in a submarine, they can adjust the frequencies to where all of a sudden people start hallucinating and seeing things and get paranoia and all kinds of stuff. So what about this 5G, Mike? Just for a second here. Take a break from Planet X and Nibiru for a moment and the waves of energy. 5G, Mike, can they change the frequencies of our brain? Look, I understand the 5G is supposed to make the internet faster and everything's connected and all that connectivity and synergy, but can they change and alter the frequencies that affects the brain and subliminally hit us with stuff?
Well, let me ask you this: what causes a person? Right here's something everybody can see, but what causes a person to look at their cell phone?
Look at what causes me to look at my cell phone?
What causes the average individual to look at their cell phone?
Well, they're anticipating. They're something's drawing them there. I mean, information, visual. I don't know. Correct.
It is something is drawing them there, and what has happened is there's a real chemical change or happening in the brain by way of devices, and let me show you how. Every time somebody looks at a device, let's take Twitter or something like that, some of the icons that show up on Twitter are timed just right. But what it does is it releases, and your body begins to release in its reward center a way that you get a release of dopamine, right? Every time that you wait for an application to load. any application can load on a cell phone. Today, cell phones can load instantly, but what they do is they add a 4 or 5 second delay, which builds up anticipation. When that anticipation turns into nervousness, but the nervousness is taken over by a reward, seeing how many people have, contacted you, or maybe a favorable message to a post or something like that, it really causes a type of chemical release in the body, a reward in the body. So people are addicted to their phones, and they don't even know it. And they must look at their phone. They must check in, because have you ever tried not to look at your phone all day long? If you do that, you begin to have this strange sensation that somehow you're being left behind or something like that, right? And that's in the body. 5G is an expansion of some of those. They'll be able to do, much more, but most importantly, with 5G, it increases the avenue by which devices can communicate with each other. Artificial intelligence is embedded. It's going to be embedded in just about everything. In order for artificial intelligence to be efficient, it must be able to connect to everything, to see the status of everything. Even your stove is actually networkable. Most devices in your home that you buy right now, they can utilize 5G. You just don't know they can utilize 5G. Most of just about anything can utilize 5G, because it's an expanded, quick, fast network that covers just avenues we've never thought of before, and it's for instant communication. So why did they develop 5G? What's the push behind 5G? That's for quantum computing, because you have to have communication the speed of light to replicate neurological firing of the brain. So what you have here is a type of consciousness forming.
So, Mike, let's just take a look at this again for a moment, because with this happening, in conjunction with the waves of energy, in the conjunction with the fact that we're racing toward a pole shift, you're saying this planet X or this binary system, planet number 9, whatever it is Mike Brown's looking for every night in Hawaii, and that as it gets closer, all of a sudden we're going to spot this thing, and it's going to be too late. When you say too late, what does that mean? I mean, what should I anticipate this summer, this fall? Are we going to get a fourth wave, or are we still dealing with this third wave for a while yet?
We're dealing with a pulse, and then sometime this year we're going to have an episode. But in this pulse, I have to get my own brain past this pulse. This pulse is somewhat unbelievable as far as what it's going to do.
This
as
one
far as
right now?
the interactions, yeah. As far as some of the interactions are just, I'm trying to think of this in my mind, right? Now, I'm having an issue because of the oceans. I'm trying to see the ocean involvement with these things, because every time the ocean is brought up. Can you imagine a time when you just walk outside, having no tsunami, having no storm, no rain, no anything, and you just walk out into a puddle of water?
What?
So that would be, these forces that are acting upon the earth are actually beginning to warp the earth. And so in that warping, in fact, you have a lot of magma shifting and moving underneath the ground. The earth is very active by way of cracking and movements and pressure changes and differentials and all sorts of things. Weird happenings, like big mounds coming up overnight and then going away the next day. Forests being lifted off the ground, maybe 10 or 12 feet, and then a week later, they're flattened again. Strange happenings like that, as though something is really happening in the earth of magnitude. And it's only a matter of time before those happenings actually begin to affect things on the surface. And the oceans, if this warping continues to happen, the oceans are going to change their positions very fast with no noise. It's just like water will try to level itself. And with the shifting, water is going to be in new places on the earth.
Mike, there's Brock was just sharing with me just a moment ago. There's a new study out that says that the way magnets work are changing, or in other words, the law of magnets. Is that correct?
Yes. And in fact, many of the constant in mathematics or formulas is something that does not change, like pi 3.14, right? Some of the constants in mathematics and celestial physics are changing, which means the properties are changing. Physics itself is beginning to alter. Some of the formulas do not work anymore because we're learning about new forces being introduced, but the entire nature of stability is changing, and which is not good, because if these mathematical models can't hold up, that implies some big problems. That means the nature of things, if they are changing like that, we have stuff out there, we have electronics here that could no longer work. If these constants change, a temperature in a satellite might rise by 1 degree, blowing out the chip in the navigation system, then what? Some of those things carry nuclear substances. So we can't afford for something to break down like that, because everything is controlled by computers, which is based on a clock. And if that clock changes at the rate at which it does cycles, then we're in trouble, because that won't keep accurate time, and the different pulses will be different. The machinery will start breaking down. Electronics will break down.
Mike, let's ask a couple more questions here just before I get back to Nibiru for a second. Last week, I asked you a question about Venezuela, but I think that you focused quickly was what we should really look at is the enemy within the Brexit. The European Union looks like it's coming apart at the seams everywhere you turn, but Britain, the people voted 3 years ago to Brexit. Here we are. They still can't Brexit or exit. What do you mean by that we should look at the enemies within at the UK?
We have a contending force. We really do have a contending force, Pastor Paul, that is really swallowing things up from the inside. It's just destroying things from the inside. There is a component in Europe and in the U.S. that is it's just not a good force. And the UK and Germany and places like that are really going to pay a price for ignoring this internal force.
Well, are we talking, when you say internal force, I mean, are we talking socialism, globalism? I mean, is it an ideology?
This is, what we're seeing now are people are trying desperately to hold on to a system that no longer exists, is what we see. That they're trying to resuscitate a system that no longer exists. And let me simply put, there's a brand new system that has been installed, right?
Yeah.
Now, most people they're by no means used to this new system. It's been installed. It's operational. And what they're doing publicly is, and the people that really don't know, they're trying to resuscitate a system that's dead. It's not going to be resuscitated. The change is as such that in order to have effective change, you have to dissolve any old systems, because a person is not going to adopt any new system until they find out the old one does not work. Keep that in mind, because they're going to prove these systems that we utilize today do not work. And the sad part about that is that we know in Revelation that the kingdom of the beast is just going to be here. But how in the world did it form so quickly outside of the eye of all those who pray? It's because they couldn't. If the beast system rises, it's nothing like what we're used to, right?
Yeah.
And it's going to rise by way of prophecy. It's going to rise.
Yeah.
Nothing can change that. And there's an internal struggle in Europe happening. The outcome is what you have to watch. You have to watch the outcome, not the drama. The outcome will you'll see a new system emerge from that place in the outcome, which is just very different. No one likes change that way, right? No one likes change, and so, but you have to disprove an old system to actually have people adopt a new.
Well, you're right.
Shame an older system.
You're right. And I think anytime I've ever seen a revolution, it's like it creeps and creeps and creeps and creeps, and then all of a sudden, boom, it explodes overnight. Yeah. And is that kind of what it's like a pressure cooker? It seems as if the European Union, the entire Europe, all of Europe is in that right now. It's in the pressure cooker stage. It's about ready to blow.
Yeah, it's like those old ideologies are just going to fall off, And that's like here in the U.S., you have some moral individuals against some very immoral individuals. And we know in the end what happens, in the end. But right now you see that same fight. It's about morality and immorality is what we really see, is what the whole thing is about.
And Mike, real quick, one more thing. This I know we've got some of the political people that are saying the world's, if we don't do something with the Green New Deal, that we're going to have they don't say man-made climate change apocalypse, but that's what they mean. They're saying man is bringing this apocalypse. Can I ask a question? Is this, and they're saying it's going to happen by the year 2030, which just so happens to be what the United Nations have been saying for the last 20 years, called Agenda 2030. So is this scare tactics, or is this a cloak to get us to not see what's really going to affect the Earth, let's say by 2030? Could it be that Planet X, Nibiru, these 5 waves of energy, is the energy, the effect on the poles, the effect on the sun, the effect on our solar system? Is that what's really going to happen by 2030? And that all of this green energy talk is just a cloak?
You know what? My issue with that is this. What's happening on Mars? Do we have people on Mars doing the same thing that's happening here? Because these issues that we're having here, they're happening all over the place. They're happening on Mars.
Well, there's nobody on Mars.
Other planets, so there you go, right there.
Oh, so in other words,
when the whole global warming topic came about, we all know when that happened with the UN General Assembly, with that magnetar, they had a meeting. What was it? A couple days after that magnetar swiped a part of our atmosphere, and that's where the global warming topic came from. It was in fact due to a magnetar that took off a portion of our atmosphere. Right after that, we had all the ozone problems, and people were burned, like microwaved in certain areas of the northern regions of this planet, and that's where that came from. But this is happening to every single celestial body out there. So it can't be us. It's not us. There's no way it can be us. We've lost. You know what? Here's what you have to think about. If science is real, right? We've had meteorites and meteors and big things explode on the Earth. Whole civilizations wiped out. Yet here we are. And you're telling me our cars are going to cause this problem when the Earth, one volcano in the Earth, can let off enough carbon, enough pollution that we can do in 1,000,000 years. It can do it in a week, and yet it recovers from that. The Earth can recover from anything, right? And so I think that answers that question.
Yeah, that's real easy, and I think that anybody with common sense can understand it. So obviously, what's happening here is the Earth and all the planets, the sun, the entire solar system is being affected by unseen forces, but we can measure those forces. We can see that the jet streams are coming down. We can measure the chargeable particles in the atmosphere. And Mike, you keep talking about volcanoes erupting. I know the magma's increasing, it's heating the core of the Earth, the magnetosphere, it's driving it into the center. What do you anticipate? Are you expecting some kind of massive mega volcanic eruption or earthquake this year? Do you see a 9.0 quake, or what is it you see coming?
I think that one of our major issues could be volcanism. I'm not going to rule out earthquakes because they seem to go along with volcanism, but volcanism is it's pretty dangerous. Volcanism is very dangerous. And if imagine this, based upon the scale of certain volcanoes, if we have, I believe it's 19 positions in the Earth, if one of those 19 were to happen to go and release, it would actually cause the ocean, it has enough mass in it to release enough material, to eject enough material under the water. These are underwater volcanoes. So imagine one going. It would actually cause the water in the Atlantic to rise up 33 feet. 33 feet. That's massive displacement from one of these vents opening up. Now that would be underwater, of which nobody would ever know it exploded, save for a couple, bubbles and methane releases. But that's one scenario. But it's likely we're going to see some sort of volcanic issue very shortly this year. Very shortly this year.
You have already warned us about the 13 different volcanic source areas in California along that whole ridge. And you've been worried about that, and you keep bringing that up. Are you still concerned about that?
Yeah, it's too active. It's just way too active. It's way too active for too long, and there's been no pressure release whatsoever. So naturally, in that scenario, you're going to have a buildup, and sooner or later, it's going to pop. So I wouldn't be surprised if I just wouldn't be surprised if some of those fires that have been happening in that area have been caused by some underground issues. I just wouldn't be shocked at that. But I'd say that that is a bad scenario in California, because that would affect a lot. That would affect quite a bit.
Especially under Los Angeles, which I understand there is one right.
It's heating up. It really is heating up, and it's becoming very active, and so that's just not a good scenario.
Mike, also, let's talk about asteroids, meteorites. I mean, just this past week, we had a meteorite come down, just came down in Florida, just outside of, I can't remember the town now, if it's slipping my mind, but it just came in, it came down, it came falling, it lit up the sky, and it hit the earth, but I don't think it was very big, yet just this little small rock had such an incredible view as it was coming down. What do you anticipate? Do you think we're going to get hit with something here?
I think we'll see more and more incursions over time. Now, one thing I'm not sure about is this, Pastor Paul. I know that at some point we're going to have a storm of a different type. Now, but it will happen so fast, I don't really foresee a warning involved in this. Because I certainly don't have the scope, the scope that one would need to watch these things, all these things.
Well, what kind of a storm? I mean, are you talking about a cosmic storm, or are you talking about a thunderstorm?
A meteor storm.
A meteor storm.
Yeah, because some of these cyclical storms that we have, like all these different named meteor showers that we have, I've noticed that for each meteor shower that we have every single year, there have been more injuries as a result of those meteor showers happening. But the trajectories of these objects are not following in line with the meteor shower itself. Because a meteor shower is going to take things in one direction. Normally you see streaks in one direction. Well, these are coming from a different direction, which, and every single time this happens, some more injuries. And there's been a steady rise of the injuries incurred by things from space, on the Earth. This is every single day, from BB-sized things to larger things. And that frequency at which people are getting harmed and homes damaged is increasing. And that precedes a portion of junk. And I know that we have certain inbounds, and then we have the lots of rocks out there in the Kuiper belts that can be disturbed, headed this way. In fact, in truth, they could have already been disturbed. We wouldn't know until they came here, right? And if something hits any of that junk that we have around the planet, well, that's just going to exacerbate the issue. But I believe that sooner or later, we're going to entertain some bad things. Some bad things. I think the sun, though, this year, the sun is going to be an issue. I think that that golden sky event is close. And I think that our magnetosphere will likely be overwhelmed at a few times, potentially this year, potentially.
The Bible talks about raining down fire and brimstone. Okay, now that's happened before, back in the time when Joshua was in a battle. Not very similar to the same time that some believe that Nibiru or Planet X was going by, and we had all the plagues of Egypt. And matter of fact, that's not just in the Bible about the plagues of Egypt, but the same exact time the plagues of Egypt were happening, Mike, the Mayans were recorded tremendous events down in Peru, and the Peruvians recorded it, as well as the Asians recorded it, and North American Indians. There was all kinds of massive events that took place. So, how do you feel about fire and brimstone? I mean, is that coming?
I'll say this loosely. I believe that very soon we'll entertain some blackish type smoke with cinders flying through the air, right? Horizontally, high speed cinders.
Horizontally?
Yeah, horizontal cinders and black smoke. The reason why I say that, I believe it's going to be, we're going to have some issues. We're going to have some issues. And the nature of an impact, whether it be small or big, it really, in this world that we live in now, with all of what we have, it really depends on where it hits, or what it hits, or what it affects. That mixed with volcanism, we have we can have some solutions on our hands. Now, as far as timing, I can't say it's next week. I can't say something like that. But what I can say is that we have a lot of inbound stuff coming here, and if we do live in a binary system, we're going to encounter its Kuiper belt first. We're going to see that first, which will likely disrupt ours. And we're going to have some interchanging of forces between the two, if that is true, right? So we're going to see very soon if these things are going to happen in our time or not, because we're going to face some consequences here. If that is true, we're going to face some real consequences.
Can that cause the wormwood effect? I mean, I understand when I read in Revelation, we got two deep impacts coming. One hits the ocean, kills about a third of the population, about a third of the marine life, and just does an unbelievable amount of damage. And it's said, the Bible calls it like a burning mountain. So it's got to be a meteorite, an asteroid, I should say, an asteroid of some sort. But then we have a second impact, and it calls that one like a burning star. Maybe it's a comet or a piece of a comet. It hits the ground, apparently, because the radiation then it poisons all the water, and many men die. Can a wormwood effect begin if the radiation? Because our radiation level on the Earth, they're already telling us now, the last 3 years is up 18%. So is that the chargeable particles? Is that the dust? Can that be the radiation falling with these little cinder brimstones?
Well, I think those will be those cinders will be mixed with high winds. You know what? Even by the Bible, we're going to deal with high winds mixed with quite a few things, and those if we do encounter some explosions on the face of the earth through volcanism or something like that, it's only going to compress the atmosphere even more, causing it almost impossible for certain folks to be outside. But regarding wormwood, that could be the effect, Pastor Paul. But every time I looked at wormwood, I don't know, maybe it's my stubborn brain, but I saw this one thing. I keep seeing this one thing over and over. And what I see is an airburst. Most of these big objects out there are huge ice balls, right? Yeah. So imagine if one of these ice balls, they're normally made of arsenic. Yeah. So imagine if one of those ice balls exploded, had an airburst over a certain area, and then all that arsenic was released, and it fell on the waters. That would be a terrible wormwood, because that arsenic would be concentrated with deadly toxins, right? And that would be horrible.
That would kill millions. That would kill millions of people.
That would be horrible. But I say that because a lot of the makeup of some of that stuff out there is arsenic. It's huge ice balls, and they will have an airburst. And if that were to happen in the atmosphere, that would be devastating to just about everything. It really would, because in the Bible it doesn't. It says that it fell upon the many waters, and so I've always looked at that like it fell upon the many waters. What do you mean it fell upon the many waters? And many men died because the waters are made bitter. But I've always seen an airburst. We've had small airbursts with ice balls that were arsenic, and they actually did tests, and it just totally polluted the area surrounding it with high levels of arsenic, deadly levels of arsenic. So if one of the larger ones exploded, that would be devastating. That really would be devastating.
Mike, wow. 3,000 people are with us live on YouTube right now. I want to thank all of you being here. And Mike, I don't know, the time flies. Can we get you back in 2 weeks, April 18th? I feel like we need to do this. April the 18th, a Thursday night.
We can. We can.
Okay.
We can do that.
Okay. That'll give us 2 weeks, folks. Let's see what's going on. We'll also be having our conference coming up in May 11th, where we're going to be talking about Nipperoo with Stephen Ben-Noon and Clyde Lewis and John Moore. And, of course, Mike is building our information up and along, and he'll continue to do that. Mike, again, Council of Time, we're so glad for what you're doing out there, making a major impact. And you've been on the money for 5-6 years now. We really appreciate all your information and the time you spend with us.
Well, I thank God for you, Pastor Paul. It's always a pleasure to be on there. I'll do my best to keep people informed as best as I can.
Amen. Thank you so much. I'll see you 2 weeks from tonight at 10:15 Eastern. All right. April 18th. All right. Thank you, Mike. God bless, brother.
Okay. God bless.
Bye-bye. Mike from around the world, folks. Again,